Picture this. You've worked hard your whole life, right? Finally saved enough for that dream vacation. You're ready to, soak up the sun on some pristine beach.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of paradise,
Right.
you stumble into a nightmare.
Yeah.
That's what happened in these cases of Natalie Holloway and Randy Latona,
Wow.
two Americans whose lives took a tragic turn on the island of Aruba.
It's the kind of story that makes you question everything you thought you knew about safe havens and, the promise of escape. So
Yeah.
we're diving into those stories today,
Oh.
examining court documents, police statements, firsthand accounts.
I mean, we've got a stack of material to go through, and I have to admit, even looking at these headlines,
Yeah.
giving me chills.
Yeah.
What are some of the key takeaways you found as you prepped for this deep dive?
Well, what really struck me is how both of these cases expose the fragility of truth, especially when you're dealing with locations that are heavily reliant on tourism.
Right.
It makes you wonder, how much does the need to protect a country's image influence investigations? Mm-hmm.
And can that sometimes hinder the pursuit of justice?
Yeah. Okay, that's already making me think, and we haven't even gotten into the specifics yet.
Right.
Let's start with Natalie Holloway's case.
Okay.
Her disappearance back in 2005 captivated the world.
Mm.
And that haunting last photo of her
Oh, yeah.
smiling with her classmates just adds another layer to the tragedy.
That photo is seared into so many people's memories, I think.
Right.
And it really tapped into, I think, kind of a primal fear.
Yeah.
The idea that, your child could vanish without a trace.
Especially in a place that's supposed to be safe.
Exactly. And the fact that it happened during a high school senior trip,
Right.
a time of celebration and new beginnings,
Yeah.
just amplified the tragedy.
Aruba was marketed as this teen-friendly vacation spot.
Right.
The legal drinking age of 18 and maybe some lax enforcement
Yeah.
made it a popular destination for graduates.
Absolutely.
But that environment, as we'll see, might have played a role in the events that unfold. The police statements, particularly those from the night Natalie disappeared, paint a pretty concerning picture of the drinking culture among those teens.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some stark contradictions about Natalie's drinking habits that night.
Right.
Some of her friends claim that she could handle her alcohol.
Okay.
But you look at the police reports, and there are suggestions of excessive drinking,
Wow.
possibly even combined with drugs.
That raises a huge red flag, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, how much did alcohol and potentially other substances contribute to what happened to her? Could it have impaired her judgment, made her
Right.
vulnerable?
Those are questions that have haunted this case from the beginning.
Yeah.
They're at the heart of these conflicting narratives that have emerged over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And without definitive answers, the speculation just continues to grow.
And then you add the fact that she was last seen leaving a bar with 3 young men,
Right.
Ron Vandersloot and the Kelpa brothers.
Right.
That's when the story takes a really dark turn.
Absolutely. Their accounts of what happened that night were inconsistent from the very start.
Okay.
They changed their stories multiple times, and the whole thing became this tangled web of suspicion.
Mm-hmm.
You have to wonder, under that kind of scrutiny, how can you separate fact from fiction?
The pressure on the Aruban authorities must have been immense.
I would think so.
You have the Holloway family desperate for answers, launching a very public campaign for justice,
Mm-hmm.
and the media attention was relentless.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that kind of pressure helped or hindered the investigation?
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Yeah.
On one hand, that public outcry can force authorities to allocate resources and really prioritize a case that might otherwise get lost in the system.
All right.
But on the other hand, that intense scrutiny can lead to rushed judgments,
Yeah.
skewed narratives, and potentially even interference with the investigative process.
It's like everyone wants a quick resolution,
Right.
a clear answer.
Yeah.
But the reality is investigations take time, and justice isn't always a straight line.
Nope.
And then you have the interrogation of Joran Vandersloot,
Right.
sleep deprivation, FBI profilers, a disputed sexual confession.
Yeah.
It all feels very intense.
The interrogation tactics used in that case were definitely controversial.
Yeah.
And Joran's changing narratives, his evasive behavior
Ow.
just fueled the speculation.
Mm-hmm.
It became almost impossible to decipher what was true and what was just a desperate attempt to deflect blame.
I imagine that's incredibly frustrating for investigators, but even more so for the family.
Absolutely.
They're clinging to every detail, every shred of evidence,
Right.
hoping it will lead them to Natalie.
And the lack of a body is a key piece missing in this puzzle.
Right.
Without that, it becomes incredibly difficult to prove what happened beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
It leaves room for endless theories and makes closure for both investigators and Natalie's family feel impossible.
So even after years of searching, countless interviews, and a global media frenzy, we're left with unanswered questions.
It's true.
Where is Natalie's body?
Right.
What really happened that night? Did Joran act alone?
Yeah.
It's like a story without an ending.
And that's what makes cases like this so captivating, but also so unsettling.
Yeah.
They force us to confront the limits of our understanding, the complexities of the justice system, and the painful reality that sometimes answers remain elusive even when we desperately seek them. It's the not knowing that's what really stays with you.
Right.
It's almost like a weight that never lifts for these families that are left behind.
Yeah.
And that sense of uncertainty is a common thread that runs through both Natalie's story and the equally tragic case of Randy Latona.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're going to shift gears now and dive into Randy's case.
Right.
He was another American who went looking for paradise this time on the island of Roatan, Honduras, just a short distance from Aruba. But the similarities in these cases are chilling.
What intrigues me is that while Natalie's story became this international sensation, Randy's case stayed largely under the radar. Right. But both families share that profound pain of losing someone under mysterious circumstances and the struggle to find answers in a system that feels foreign and unresponsive.
So let's set the scene.
Okay.
Randy leaves his life as a stockbroker in Las Vegas to start a rum business in this tropical paradise.
Wow.
He meets a woman named Leslie Spearing, and for a while, everything seems to be falling into place.
Until it all unravels tragically.
Yeah.
From what I gathered in the sources, the relationship between Randy and Leslie was anything but stable.
Okay.
There are reports of drug use, financial issues, and Leslie even allegedly threatened Randy shortly before his death.
Wow.
Those details become pretty crucial when you're trying to piece together what happened.
And this is where the mystery really takes hold.
Right.
Randy is found dead in his bed with a gunshot wound to the head and a gun in his hand. The Honduran police quickly rule it suicide.
Yeah.
But Randy's family refuses to believe it.
Right.
What evidence did they find that challenged that initial conclusion?
The Latona family really dug deep.
Yeah.
They had to become investigators themselves in a way, and it led them to uncover some pretty damning details.
Okay.
The gun's position in Randy's hand was unusual.
Right.
According to the reports, there was a lack of gunshot residue, and the blood splatter analysis didn't add up.
Wow, those are some major red flags.
Yeah.
I remember reading about the gun's position and thinking, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. It seemed to contradict Leslie's account of what happened, or at least that's what the family argued.
Right.
And the missing gunshot residue,
Yeah.
that's hard to explain away, right?
Exactly. And then you have Leslie's claim that she slept through the gunshot while lying next to Randy.
You're telling me
Even to someone with limited forensic knowledge, that sounds implausible.
these inconsistencies in the evidence fueled the Latona family's determination to find the truth.
Right.
They hired private investigators and forensic experts.
Wow.
Even though they were up against a foreign government and a police force that seemed unwilling to reopen the case.
Their persistence is remarkable.
Yeah.
It shows you the power of a family's love and their refusal to accept a version of events that simply doesn't fit the facts. They were essentially fighting two battles, one to uncover the truth about Randy's death, and another to be heard and taken seriously by the Honduran authorities.
It's heartbreaking to think about what they must have gone through.
Yeah.
They were grieving, trying to process this unimaginable loss.
Right.
And on top of that, they had to become legal experts and advocates just to get someone to listen to them.
And you have to consider the added layer of complexity when you're dealing with a case that crosses international borders.
Right.
Different legal systems, cultural differences, even language barriers.
Yeah.
All of that can create obstacles for a family seeking justice in a foreign land.
It sounds like an uphill battle, to say the least.
It is.
Did the Latonas find any legal recourse? Were they able to challenge the Honduran authorities' findings?
They didn't give up, that's for sure.
Good for them.
They hired a former prosecutor, Wayne Hollingsworth, to lead their independent investigation.
Wow.
He reviewed everything meticulously and concluded that the evidence pointed to homicide, not suicide.
Okay.
Armed with this new information, the family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Leslie in the United States.
Did Leslie fight the lawsuit?
That's the thing, she didn't even show up in court.
Wow.
Because of that, the judge ended up awarding the Latonas a $2.5 million judgment.
Wow, that's a huge victory in a legal sense.
Yeah,
But I can only imagine that for the Latonas, it was a bittersweet moment.
absolutely.
No amount of money can truly compensate for their loss or bring Randy back.
You're absolutely right. And it highlights that in these kinds of cases, the pursuit of justice is about so much more than legal outcomes.
Yeah.
It's about finding answers, holding those responsible accountable, and honoring the memory of the person you lost. For the Latonas, it meant relentlessly pushing for the truth, even when it felt like the whole world had moved on.
It's incredible how these families found the strength to keep fighting, to push for answers when it would have been so easy to just give up.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes their stories so impactful.
Yeah.
They remind us that even in the face of overwhelming odds, we can't underestimate the power of hope and perseverance.
It makes you question what you would do if you were in their shoes.
Right.
Would you have that same level of determination, the courage to challenge authorities?
Yeah.
To keep digging for the truth, even when it feels like no one is listening? It's a sobering thought.
I know I keep coming back to this, but
Yeah.
the fact that both of these cases happened in these popular tourist destinations,
Right.
it adds another layer of complexity. It makes you wonder if there's a systemic issue at play here. Are tourists more vulnerable in these places?
Yeah.
Are their cases less likely to be thoroughly investigated?
It's definitely something to consider. Both Aruba and Honduras rely heavily on tourism.
Right.
It's a major part of their economies. And while we can't make generalizations based on a few cases, there's a perception, whether it's accurate or not, that these island nations might be more concerned with protecting their image than with diligently pursuing justice when tourists are involved.
Right. And that perception,
Yeah.
that feeling that justice isn't being served, can really fuel the family's distrust and frustration.
Absolutely.
It's like they're not only grappling with the loss of a loved one, but also battling against a system that feels rigged against them.
And the media attention, especially in Nadia's case, can either amplify those feelings or help to level the playing field.
Right.
It's a powerful tool that can bring much needed scrutiny to an investigation, but it can also create a lot of noise and make it harder to discern the truth.
It's almost like everyone becomes an armchair detective, weighing in on the evidence, forming opinions based on limited information.
Right.
It's no wonder these cases become so shrouded in speculation and conspiracy theories.
But amidst all the noise, I think it's important to remember that at the heart of these stories are real people who have experienced profound loss. The Holloway and Latona families aren't just characters in a true crime drama.
Right.
They're parents, siblings, friends who are trying to make sense of a tragedy that has shattered their lives.
It's a good reminder to approach these cases with empathy and to recognize the human toll behind the headlines. We can analyze the evidence, debate the legal technicalities, but we should never lose sight of the fact that these are real people who deserve justice and closure.
Absolutely. And I think their stories serve as a reminder that we all have a role to play in demanding transparency,
Right.
accountability, and a fair pursuit of justice, no matter where in the world these tragedies occur.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some of the key takeaways you hope our listeners will ponder?
I'd say the biggest takeaway is the importance of critical thinking.
Okay.
Don't just accept the official narrative at face value. Dig deeper, research, question, and form your own conclusions based on the evidence these cases highlight how easily truth can be obscured, especially when powerful interests are at play.
And if you're traveling to a foreign country, it's worth considering what resources and support systems are in place.
Yeah.
If something goes wrong, familiarize yourself with local laws and customs and stay informed about potential risks.
And lastly, I hope these stories inspire a sense of empathy and compassion for those who are fighting for justice, often against insurmountable odds.
Yeah.
The Holloway and Latona families remind us that the pursuit of truth can be a long and arduous journey, but one worth taking even in the face of adversity.
Well said. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the complexities of justice and the search for truth, be sure to subscribe to The Deep Dive for more insightful explorations of real-life mysteries and controversies. We'll be back soon with another captivating case that's sure to challenge your assumptions and leave you wanting more.